you get glimpses into people's lives wherever you go. Wandering around, now that my mind is far more open and clear, different memories keep coming back to me. And I remember when I was at school, and this is in the late 1990s, so last century, last millennium, and getting on for 30 years ago, I had two very close friends, and there was this one time that I was walking around with my male counterpart, and there were these young girls who were sort of mocking him and taunting him because he was a bit of an oddball and I'm afraid sort of a bit of an easy target. I mean, it sounds a bit nasty, but you know, he was a bit of a weirdo. But the thing with him was he actually embraced it, and clearly this was something that happened to him a lot. And we were wandering along, and these young girls were following behind us, sort of trying to make comments at him and sort of prod a little bit. And he said, just keep on walking. And when I say, just turn around and keep walking. And so we waited a few seconds, and then he said, now, under his breath. And we turned around and we just kind of kept on walking. And these young girls jumped and yelped a little bit. And we kept on walking, and then they left him alone. So it was obviously a strategy that he'd developed. And it's funny, this whole interaction was seconds. These things stick with you. And on my walk there, I thought, I didn't really, when I was wandering around the school doing my thing and looking at the architecture and enjoying the library and doing what the three of us, well, I actually came up with the name, what we did was called paradoxical walking syndrome, where we would just wander around the school grounds very randomly. So paradoxical walking syndrome, as I say, I came up with the name, and it stuck. And in those, when I was doing my thing, nobody bothered me at all, actually. Nobody interfered with me. But when I'd been at the school in my earlier years and there were games lessons, it was absolutely hideous because I'm relatively tall now, but back then I was much, much, much shorter and a lot wider. And so in games lessons, I was quite an easy target. But there's a nice memory associated with that time as well, that we just had whatever hideous, football lesson or rugby, and it's still school year's best days of your life is bollocks. Total bollocks. It all gets better as you get older, and we all know it. But we tell ourselves these lies so that we can endure, the onslaught of what it's like being at school and in early jobs, blah, blah, blah. But lots of blah, blah, blahing in this video. But there was this time that I was getting changed out of my sports gear and then into my school uniform with great relief. And there was this older guy who was obviously in the upper years of the school, who sort of looked over and smiled and winked at me, because I was very, very cute as a child. And I had huge horn-rimmed glasses and lots and lots and lots of hair back then. And I was very sweet. And I just remember that touching moment. And, in later life, when you're online and trying to do your thing and people are throwing things at you, it can really feel like you're crazy, you want to live life a bit differently. And this is something else that I've reflected on a lot, is whenever I've disagreed with people, or maybe I've done things in a slightly unorthodox manner, bit of an alternative way. People say, oh, you just like doing things differently on purpose, and I thought, no, I just do my own thinking. And I've actually always done my own thinking, but I've let it, over the last 10 years, I've let that be incredibly dampened, not out of resignation, but just sort of out of, sort of wanting a bit of an easier life, frankly. But when I interact now and people, come at me with various comments, I think, oh, come on, you can do better than that. Have a bit of a joke and a laugh at it. But the truth is, you're not crazy. You're not. You just do things differently, and you want to have a better quality of life. You want to achieve good things for yourself and your loved ones. And you'll be surprised at how many people will be incredibly critical of you for wanting to do so. And you'll also find that people are extraordinarily suspicious and defensive when it comes to curiosity, being inquisitive. God forbid that you should ask a question and find out the truth of any given situation. But earlier on my walk, I actually tweeted out, thinking independently will single you out for success and for criticism. Get used to both, because you're going to get it. Don't put yourself in the kitchen if it's too hot for you, but you can cook up a great banquet of life if you're willing to put yourself out there, and it can be extraordinarily good fun. It can be quite amusing, some of the stuff that comes back at you, but that's the game. That's the adventure of life. And if you can actually start to turn your thinking towards being braver and more creative and getting a bit dirtier, getting into the mix of things, well, you'd be surprised at what opportunities present themselves. And I will add this as a side note, that there have been many things that you will have done in your past, achieved. Start acknowledging those. I've said it often, but start reinforcing what it is that you want to do. Build solid foundations by the wins that you've already had, and there will be many, but you need to notice, you need to pay attention, and pay attention to the fact that most people will only ever be reactive. They will only ever be passive. They'll never be proactive, most people. It's too much of a leap for them. But, my friend, it's not too much of a leap for you, because you have greatness in you, and you have the light of life within you, the divine spark of inspiration and divinity that makes us all unique human beings. Take advantage of that uniqueness and let it shine in the world. And remember that naysayers are not really actually attacking you. They're just putting on display their lack of ambition, their lack of bravery. You have those things in spades. Use them, my friend.